Lincolnville Selectmen's meeting. It is the 27th of December. And just as a reminder to everyone, during any of our conversations, please keep conversation limited to between the board, and if there's someone at the podium and the board, and if you need to have a conversation between yourselves, please just step out of the room so that we're not distracting from the conversation. Great, good. Mike, would you care to read the quote
Sure.
of the evening?
Yeah. The only thing that counts will be the dedication you give. Paul Brown.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to open the podium for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one rushing up to the podium for any non-agenda items, let's move along to the administrator's report.
The only thing I have tonight beyond the agenda items is that all dog licenses expire at calendar year end. Please renew or license your dogs. There is a state mandated late fee that'll come into effect a little later on, but please get those done. It's helpful in case your dog happens to run away. We know who it belongs to. That's it.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. And let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. The planning board meets Wednesday, December 29th, 7 p.m. Town office will be closed on Friday, December 31st in observance of New Year's Day. School committee meets Monday, January 3rd, 6 p.m. at the Lincolnville Central School. Broadband committee is scheduled to meet Thursday, January 6th, 6 p.m. And the Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, January 10th, 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share?
I have one.
Yes.
On Wednesday, this Wednesday, December 29th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Center Community Building, they'll be offering a booster vaccination clinic. It's available to anyone. You don't have to be from Lincolnville. Bring your vaccination card. No appointments necessary. Walk in.
Yeah.
9 a.m. to 1.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's a Moderna. I just read the report, it's Moderna.
Yes.
And therefore you can get, no matter what vaccination you had before, JJ, Pfizer, you're good to go with this.
Correct.
Okay.
You do have to be 18 or older because it is Moderna. That's not not yet approved for under 18. But
Super, great. Any other community events anyone wishes to share? Seeing nothing, let's move along. We have two sets of meeting minutes, the first set being from the 13th of December.
The board approved the December 13th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have discussion.
Okay.
Line 46, with regards to approving the first set of meeting minutes, it says late made a motion, seconded by late. If I remember correctly, wasn't that you?
That's second.
Okay, so that needs to be changed to
Yep. Ray.
Jordan.
Or sorry.
Yeah, to Jordan with that amendment. That's
Okay.
what my motion will be.
Okay, and do we have a second to the amendment?
Yes.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And the second set of meeting minutes, please.
I move it. Oh, go ahead.
I move that the board approve the December 17th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And moving along to agenda item number 6, we have two community interest forms before us, and you also have a little supplemental side sheet for the cut and the paste that didn't happen between number 5 and number 7 for that. And so I believe we have representatives here who have applied with their community interest forms. And so I don't know if anyone has any questions for the representatives for the applications, or if someone would care to make a motion.
I do have a question for David.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're the guy who would know. I know that the charge for the broadband committee is it's limited to 10 people.
Yep.
Are we under 10?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent.
Is Mr. Hand here to?
Yeah.
Would it be out of turn to ask him to just come up?
No, sure.
Good evening, Steve Hand. I live at 628 Beach Road, Nickerson Farm. Was previously a resident of Lincolnville, served as the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee in Lincolnville many years ago. Was also on the school board here in Lincolnville when the CSD was first formed. Lived in Rockport for the last, whatever it's been, 20 years. But we've been living at the farm since March. We bought it in 2017. And looking to get back involved in the community as I was before. I've got a lot of background in broadband. Ran an ISP, have done engineering work with data centers and ISPs. Currently run all of IT and security for Tilson, which is in this industry as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Yeah, yes, welcome back to town.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Hand?
Yeah, do you know what we're doing on the broadband committee? Have you had a chance to watch any of the videos or interviews and in the meetings in the last few months?
I have paid attention to what's going on. I participated in the survey. I went online and read the report that was submitted and items like that. So I'm not totally up to date, but definitely can be a quick study.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate the interest.
Any other questions for Mr. Hand?
No?
Well, thank you so much for coming in this evening
Thanks a
also.
lot.
Would someone care to make a motion, please?
I move to appoint Stephen Hand to the Broadband Committee as a regular member with a term expiring June 2022.
Second.
Moved and well seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And we have a second application for the Conservation Commission. Are there any questions for the applicant, or does someone care to make a motion?
I move to appoint Paul Sampson to the Conservation Commission as a regular member with a term expiring June of 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Is
Seeing,
Paul here tonight?
he is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not to drag things out, but I just always like to, would you mind stepping up and just giving us a
Sure.
quick little spiel about yourself? Would be fantastic.
I don't think we should do that. I would really like to be on this commission. So my name is Paul Sampson. I've been a resident of Lincolnville for 53, 54 years, somewhere in there. My family goes back quite a bit more before that. I used to live over on Moody Mountain Road, about 4 years ago, moved over to what's called Where's Waldo Way, which comes in from Hope, but I do reside in Lincolnville. I've been very impressed with what the Conservation Commission has done in town over the past decade or so, and I would like to, if appointed, beyond that, see where things are going, and hopefully that my life between woodworking and forestry and such, and just really love this town. So I'm hoping that I could get on to the commission, see exactly where I might fit in the best, and go from there. So anything I could answer for you?
Got a question.
Yeah,
Go
sure,
ahead.
Mike.
Go
No,
ahead.
go right ahead, Mike.
No, you said you are past president of SWOM, or
My term
FKA
just
SWOM?
ended this past year. Yeah.
Okay, got it, okay, so,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Maine Woodland owners, actually. now.
Right, yeah, change the name, right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that would be good, because I'm on the Conservation Commission, and we need, not an in at your next conference, but we need to know a few dates and times
Mhm.
of that video, of what's the agenda of that conference that's coming up.
Yeah, it's right online, go to Maine
Okay.
Woodland owners, and you'll see we have, I
Gotcha.
think it's January, it's the same Wednesday as what the ag show would have been, but that's
Okay.
all virtual this
Yeah,
year
okay.
again. So.
Great,
And
thanks.
is there a particular issue or something of concern maybe that, what prompted you to come up, or you just wanted to be?
No, I was fortunate enough that a few years ago I sold my business. I have a little more time now. I used to be on committees in town, and it's kind of nice to lay low for a little while and recharge,
Yeah.
shall we say, and
Makes
I feel like
sense.
I'm there, so,
All right, well, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So we have a seconded motion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you both for coming out this evening. You are welcome to stay. You're not compelled to stay.
Do you want to say something to Paul, if I could, really quickly? Do you mind if I use this, I'm the secretary, kind of the Conservation Commission. Mind if I send you the draft minutes from our last meeting to this address?
Oh,
Okay,
that'd be great.
Good.
Want to get up to speed, go on in.
okay, thanks.
Super.
I'll do that.
Thoughtful. Thank you, Mike.
Mm.
And if there's nothing else there, we have a representative from MMA Risk Management here to continue our conversation regarding firefighter blanket accident insurance coverage. Welcome to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Ballou. I am with Maine Municipal Association. And I appreciate the opportunity to come out here and discuss the firefighter program. But more wanted to open this up and answer any questions that you might have specific to the program or specific to the coverage needs of volunteer firefighters.
Does anyone have questions immediately?
I guess my primary questions have to do with the maximum amount of death benefits and the cap on benefits in general, and if there are different tiers of coverage, or if there's a limit, if $50,000 is as high as it goes.
Sure. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll back up just a little bit just to give the idea of where this program comes into play, because it might fill the gaps for you a little bit. So we provide the workers' compensation coverage for the municipality as well as numerous municipalities in the state of Maine. What a lot of folks don't necessarily realize is that volunteers in general are not afforded protections under the Workers' Comp Act due to the fact that they're not recognized as employees. So volunteer firefighters and volunteer rescue personnel, they are the exception to that rule, and they are granted coverage under the Workers' Comp Act. But because they're an exception to the rule, it is delineated as to when they are and are not eligible for benefits. So generally speaking, and I have to speak in generalities because every claim is going to be based upon the specifics of each event that takes place, and then that's going to be analyzed in the event to give a claims determination at the end. But that said, generally speaking, volunteer fire and rescue personnel are granted coverage when they're doing emergency response or when they're doing training activities necessary for emergency response. So that leaves quite a few instances where our volunteer fire and rescue personnel might be engaged in activities, social and charitable, where workers' comp benefits may not be in play. As a result of that, a number of municipalities asked us to go out on their behalf and find a market that would provide them some benefits when workers' compensation isn't there. We went out with our broker, Hub International New England, and found this program that's offered through the Hartford, which provides benefits for fire and rescue personnel as well as auxiliary personnel and junior firefighters when they're engaged in activities where workers' comp coverage isn't applicable. There is some crossover, but typically it's designed so that if workers' comp's in play, this won't be effective, and when workers' comp is not in play, this one steps up and sort of fills that gap so that our volunteers have coverage under that. It is a one program fits all. It's not one that has negotiated limits where you can get a tier A, B, or C. It is just that straight limit. We actually negotiated it pretty hard over the past number of years. This has been an offering for probably at least 12 years, and it started off much higher than where we're at now. But right now it's $34 per person, and it does have that max benefit of a $50,000 death benefit or dismemberment. That said, what it also does, which is more what most of our fire personnel and rescue personnel are looking for, is that it has what's called an indemnity benefit, where it's going to supply loss of wages And I've got a tiered schedule of all those things here, but I don't know if you accept
Yeah. we have-
handouts or not.
We
Oh,
do.
you got it? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you.
Perfect. So that one breaks out, I mean, what it does, if I can get to that myself, is that sheet breaks out, you know, who's covered, and who actually is a cost payee on it. So our volunteer fire and rescue personnel, they are the only ones that get counted in that $34 per person. Any full-time personnel that you may have, I don't know if your chief is full-time or not. Any full-time that you may have had are automatically covered, there's no cost for that. Your junior firefighters, if you have any that are applicable, are automatically covered at no additional cost. And your auxiliary department, if you have one, gets automatic benefits. The true full tiered benefits, though, that's why there's 3 columns on that sheet, apply to your volunteer fire and rescue personnel. The 2 categories beside that, which is your junior and auxiliary, they have lower benefit structures, but again, there was no cost for them to be insured, we just negotiated them into that rate.
I guess my second question is, so as far as keeping a list or a registry of firefighters that we have, is it something where if we add somebody during the year that they need to be added on, or is it flexible in the fact that they will be covered automatically, or do you need an exact roster of everyone who's a part of the fire department?
No, that's a fantastic question, and that's one that we looked at as well when we were sort of putting these together and analyzing which ones would work best. That's why it's called a blanket accident program, is that it's based off the enrollment that you started it off with. If we anticipate that enrollments in our fire and rescue departments are gonna go up and down throughout the year, if you have a massive jump where, you know, all of a sudden you added 5 or 10 new rostered personnel, we would recommend that you let the company know and we would update that. But one falling on and off throughout the year is not a complication. It's designed to fill that and accept that.
Okay.
Yeah. It is not, I mean, I do have to make it clear, this is not a program that Maine Municipal Association runs or controls. We just negotiated it basically on behalf of our departments. Because basically what we are structured to do is provide insurance coverage for governmental entities in the state of Maine solely. And they are considered employees when they're doing those activities that fall under emergency response and training. And it gets a little grayer when they go outside and they're doing some activities that may not be. So that's why this is sort of a supplemental private program. We sort of market it and do all the management on behalf of the municipality so that you don't have to deal with the headache side of it. But it is truly managed through the Hartford. It is their program, and the specific coverages are theirs.
Other questions?
Yeah, I just wonder, how many municipalities does this, have you covered through this?
Off the top of my head,
Ballpark.
I would say 75.
Okay.
And I know that we've got about, last check, I think there was between, I want to say about 3,300 volunteer firefighters and rescue personnel under this program. There's other programs out there. You know, we're not, you know, whatever works for you is what we want you to be in. This is just the one that we were able to put together on behalf of our members.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Other questions from Marcus? Erin, anything? You asked the question I was going to ask, so.
Sorry
No
about that.
further questions. Do you have anything else that we should consider or think about as we go through our process?
When it comes to this,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think it's a great tool for our municipalities as far as not only, you know, I come from a volunteer fire and rescue family. I mean, I grew up doing it. My parents were on it. And it's one of those things where it's a relatively selfless act. You know, they're out there working to protect us from anything and everything at most of the times. So it's a great tool to have out there that fills that need of when coverage may not be there. One of the biggest pieces that tends to be not on the radar of folks when they look at this coverage is that, you know, our personnel are covered when they're officially dispatched. So once they're dispatched, they're gonna get into their vehicles, leave their residence. Typically, when they leave their residence, that's when coverage begins. A lot of them will respond directly to the emergency scene, or they'll go to the station, be dispatched from there, go to the emergency, take care of what needs to be done, and then they either go back to the station or they are released by the chief or designated officer. When they are released, there's no longer coverage. So that commute home, when the adrenaline's gone, in the middle of the night, in the storm, coverage, generally speaking, probably isn't there. This fills that void. This is what I refer to as door-to-door coverage. This covers them once you step across your threshold, leave to report to the emergency scene. Then, once you've left your residence, the area that's under your control, workers' comp then kicks on. You then do your emergency, respond back to the station, stage your gear, stage your trucks, prepare yourself for the next emergency that rolls out. You're then released, workers' comp ends. Then this coverage picks up and gets you to the rest of your way safely home. So it's one of those things, a lot of people fixate on the emergency, they fixate on the social and charitable. I tend to fixate where I see the claims, and that's a big one. And it's really that commute, It's amazing when adrenaline goes away, you're sitting in your warm vehicle, it's dark, for some reasons emergencies never happen when it's nice out. I don't know why, but it tends to be the nature of the beast. But that's one of those things that I think is a key tool, is that it fills that void. And I think it's another tool as far as recruitment goes. So it's, the fact that they can have dependable coverage in the event that something goes wrong, either whether it's through Maine Municipal Association and the Workers' Comp program, or if it's through a program that you set up to assist them, I think that's pretty invaluable on a number of fronts. One, it shows you care, and two, it makes sure that they're protected and their families are protected from what they're doing on behalf of their towns.
Sure, thank you. Mike, you had another question?
Yeah, I just wonder if the door-to-door applies to trainings as well as emergencies.
No, that would be a tougher call because you can't really dictate, because under workers' comp, if you generally look at it, commuting's not covered.
Okay.
When you and I are driving back and forth to work, that's just a general commute. That's us going to work, and it's not covered.
Okay.
They made it an exception under the Workers' Comp Act for volunteer fire and rescue because it's a different type of scene. You're not controlling the hours, you're not controlling the weather, you're not controlling what's happening. So they do grant coverage for while there's a commute. For when we're doing training, then we're just driving back and forth to work again.
Okay.
Is how it's generally looked at.
Got it.
That said, there's always exceptions, there's always exemptions, and I would always encourage anybody, in the event that something does go wrong, file a claim,
Yeah.
see if there is coverage, and if there is, fantastic. If there isn't, ask for that explanation as to why not.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
the only thing that you're talking about that's not covered would be the commute to and from training, correct?
Well, I can't say that's the only things that are not covered.
What about training? What if somebody falls from a second floor, training on how to, with an air pack on, and what happens if they go through a floor or comes down the stairs backwards and lands and gets hurt? My question is, are they covered?
Under the Workers' Comp Act, training is, they're covered under Workers' Comp for that.
Okay.
Yeah, workers' compensation covers your emergency response. So that covers, you going to the emergency response, you engaging in that emergency response, either ending at the scene, returning to the station, and restaging for the next emergency response. It also covers training necessary for emergency response because all our fire and rescue personnel, whether you're tier 1, 2, or 3, first attack, interior, exterior, you name it, paramedic, EMT, EMS, they all have required training requirements that they have to have. That's covered under the Workers' Comp Act. As well as maintenance of equipment necessary for emergency response. So if you're working on apparatus, if you're working on your SCBA, your turnout gear, bunker gear, whatever you want to call it, cascade systems, positive pressure vents, staging, cycling, pumps, you name it, that's gonna fall under workers' comp. If I'm just there sweeping a bay, I don't have to be a firefighter necessarily to sweep a bay, I could be a volunteer of any capacity, probably not.
Okay.
But this one would.
Yeah.
That picks up the, I don't care if you're building the fire station, this would pick you up as long as it's a related fire department activity. Sweeping, cleaning, painting, maintenance of the building, these are all stuff that our fire departments do, but technically that in a volunteer capacity most likely wouldn't be covered under workers' comp where it is with this. Same with some social and charitable engagement and activities with the public. A lot of times that's not gonna be covered under the Workers' Comp Act, will be covered under this. If you're doing the bean hole dinners, or if you're doing the french fries at the fair, all that stuff falls under your fire department, would have coverage under these programs. That's why when I was trying to explain at the beginning, the nuance of, it's designed when one's not in play, the other one to come into play. Sorry if I didn't explain that well.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, not a problem. I'm here for you.
Anything else for Marcus? Thank you so much
Oh, my pleasure.
for coming and explaining this to us, and certainly if we have follow-up questions, through
Oh.
David, we'll be in touch.
Most definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
David's got my number. He can call me
Perfect.
anytime, and we'll come out anytime you want.
Excellent. Well,
Thank you.
I
very much
appreciate
appreciate you coming out on a cold December
it. Oh, this is easy.
evening.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for coming.
So, does the board wish to make a motion, please?
I move that the cost associated with providing volunteer firefighter blanket accident insurance coverage is provided by Maine Municipal Association Risk Management Services and the Hartford Fire Insurance Company be included in the first draft of the fiscal year 23 municipal budget.
So moved,
I'll second.
seconded, discussion.
Yeah, I don't remember us making this motion last meeting when we were presented with a different policy. So I would support this if we included that other presentations cost as well, rather than limiting us to this one alone.
You want to consider both numbers in the budget?
That'd be great.
Because
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
considerably more coverage, and, when I had brought this up, I don't know if it was, almost a year ago, I had specifically said that I really wanted to look for a minimum of $100,000 coverage, which was offered to us before, so I would just feel bad if we pigeonholed ourselves and didn't give us the option, budget-wise, to consider, a policy that gave us more coverage of this, so.
Well, can I make a suggestion that perhaps we table making a motion for now, and at our next select board meeting, weigh out both presentations and have a discussion, and then make a determination for a number to send to budget process?
That sounds great.
That sound all right?
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, either or is
Then we
fine.
can have both.
Yeah, I mean, if we go with the higher number, then if we decide to go with the lower one, we're covered, so I feel like there's that covers us no matter what, but if you wanna put it off to the next meeting, I just really wanna make sure that this is in the next budget year.
Sure,
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
it's,
I know, it's just,
Putting it-
I had to say that, just.
that way we can have both side by side,
Yeah,
and then have a true
yeah,
comparison.
I would appreciate that,
Which it
great,
sounds like you want.
yeah.
So, do you wish to withdraw your motion?
I withdraw what I just said.
And
So do I.
And so what we'll do is we'll table any board action until our next meeting, so we can have a side-by-side comparison of the presentations that we had.
Right.
Sound good, David?
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, thank you all very much, and again,
Thank you so
thanks for
much.
coming out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, agenda item number 8, we have John Pinsence here to make a presentation to the board.
I hope I can speak as clearly and as eloquently as this gentleman just did. I don't count on it. Anyway, so the last select board meeting, I presented the issue of a pier. Glasses are cold. You have to warm up, otherwise they won't be able to read. And I don't know if anybody in the audience was there last time or not, but some people were. So, but just a little bit of a review. It's a 300-foot pier, and a 55-foot ramp, and a 30 by 16-foot float. extending out from Shag Point, in the Shag Point area. And a number of people, abutters and others who live along the shore, but not just along the shore, are opposed to it because of the scale of it, being so big, and that it's on granite piers, that it's on a completely undeveloped section of coastline that is still quite pristine. There's a gigantic erratic which is on the shore near where my wife and I live, and sometimes we go down there and look out at on the shore and think that, you know, this rock has been here for about 10,000 years or so, and looking up and down the shore we don't see any development. It's really quite an extraordinary place, and if I'm selfish because I love that, then yes, I'm guilty of being selfish. But it's not just for me, but it's for my grandkids as well, and for anybody who loves the shore and loves an untrammeled piece of shoreland or woodland or whatever it is. We happened to be watching a movie or something the other night, and there was a line in it that I thought, wow, that kind of really hits it on the spot. It was a scene where two people were standing looking out at a beautiful view of a field, rolling hills, and one person said, well, you know, what's the big deal that, you know, they're going to put a quarry here? And the other character said, well, if you lose sight of this, you lose sight of your soul. And so for me, that's kind of what this is about. So there's a lot of science and data and things like that involved. Unfortunately, my glasses are now still fogging up. I have to do this. That's okay with you all? Otherwise, keep fogging up. So there are currently no other private individual recreational docks, particularly on this size and scale, along the Lincolnville coastline. The project would result in a physical and visual anomaly along the natural coastline. A scale rendering of how the project would appear, I can pass that around to you all. You can have a look at it, if I may. It's a scaled rendering of what it would look like. We believe that it would unreasonably interfere with regular, customary, and traditional use of our public marine shore for recreation, safe enjoyment, and safe navigation. It would negatively impact those who currently use the shallow waters near the shore for sailing, kayaking, paddleboarding, small watercraft, sailboats. It's a particularly exposed area of the coast there. I don't know if you've spent some time there, but it's almost always, not always, but often very windy, pretty good waves there, especially, well, of course, through the winter, but even the summer in afternoon. Lots of waves, granite piers to deal with, kind of interrupts the natural flow of traffic, so to speak. The size of the project would negatively impact the privacy and views of many of the neighboring properties on the shore. It would likely require the use of lighting, since it goes out so far. Lighting at night, and I don't know about any of you, but the night skies here in Lincolnville are a treasure. To be able to look up and see the Milky Way on a dark winter night, or even in the summertime. To risk losing that, again, we risk, to me anyway, we risk a lot more than just losing, or just having, losing an opportunity to see the night sky. It goes much deeper than that. And for those who spend a little bit of time looking at the night sky, you know, it's a wonder. Anyway, I think Lincolnville might be one of the places too that's, there's a kind of register of dark sky, night sky places, and Lincolnville, in areas of it anyway, might be on that register. There aren't too many places really anywhere anymore where you can do that. So it's one of the characteristics of this town that makes it so special. I did gather some signatures, or we did, people, the group calling ourselves Lincolnville Voices. And so far, oh yeah, there's a few more. Thank you, Frank. A few more, let's see, so anyway, so far, on this sheet anyway, and I'll count them up on here, but 42 residents of Lincolnville signed a petition in opposition to it. I can pass this around, but I would like to get it back and then so I can make copies of it, so. if you
Well, I
want.
think you can hang on to
Okay,
it for
all
now,
right,
yeah.
fine. Good. And then, so 42 plus a few more, we're close to 50 signatures, actually a little over that, and still gathering signatures as well, so. As far as some of the regulations from town and from the state, this is from our own shoreline zoning ordinance. Piers, docks, wharves, section C, bridges and other structures, uses extending over or below the normal high water line. So access from shore shall be, this is C, section C number 2. Access from shore shall be developed on soils appropriate for such use and constructed as to control erosion. One of the maps I passed around shows the coastal bluffs, and this particular area is part of the coastal bluffs. Very steep bank there, very subject to erosion. I think that the construction, the whole aspect of that would be a problem. Number 3 under that section C, the location shall not interfere with existing developed or natural beach areas. Well, it's not a developed beach area, as I pointed out, but it's definitely a natural beach area. And number 3 says the location shall not interfere with existing developed or natural beach areas. Number 4, the facility shall be located so as to minimize adverse effects on fisheries. It turns out that a lot of that area is cobblestone habitat, which is important for lobster larvae. So it seems to me that if we're concerned about lobster fishing and places where lobster larvae can survive and live unimpeded in a natural habitat, that building something like this runs the risk of changing that in ways that we don't really know how. But when you change the flow dynamics of a shoreland, who knows what can happen. Many of us are just not willing to take that risk. The facility shall be no larger in dimension than necessary to carry on the activity and be consistent with the surrounding character and uses of the area. As I said earlier, from the shore, Shag Point, looking up towards the ferry and down towards Camden, you can't see anything like this at all. One of the characteristics that the engineering firm that did the proposal or drew up the plans for this pier, one of the things they said was that there are similar piers in the area, but there aren't. I mean, the Lincolnville Ferry Terminal, or the pier there, is not similar in any way, and it services an entire town, the entire town of Blythesboro. Hundreds of people use it every day. This pier would be for the use of one family. And I want to make it clear that it's nothing against the families, but I and others are opposed to what's happening there. Not about them, it's about what they're doing or what's being done in their name on the land and in the water. State guidelines, I believe these are the most recent. This was from a sort of a newsletter. I think it's a newsletter that the DEP puts out specifically about municipal shoreline zoning ordinances. And so they ask the question, do the guidelines for municipal shoreline zoning ordinances include limitations on vegetative cutting for development activities in shoreline areas? The answer is yes. The guidelines limit the amount of vegetation that can be cut in the shoreline zone in order to maintain water quality, protect wildlife, preserve natural beauty of shoreline areas. It's important to maintain naturally vegetated shoreline areas. If you look at some of the photos that were taken 3 years ago on some of the real estate sites of that land there, on the shore and inland where the lot is I wouldn't say covered with trees, but there are many, many trees there. Now the shore is completely denuded of trees, and that did not happen in the last 10 years. It happened, excuse me, it happened in the last 3 years. Valuable habitat is lost. Disturbance of wildlife is greatly increased by the loss of a vegetative screen. As a and these are words from the DEP. I'm not making this up. As a result, waterfowl, songbirds, shorebirds, mammal populations are negatively affected. And they go on to say, although natural beauty is a rather subjective term, most will agree that a Maine coast or inland water body with excessive removal of trees and other natural vegetation is not in the best interest of the people of Maine. They go on to talk about what are the restrictions on clearing of vegetation in the shoreline zone. Generally, in the first 75 feet from the normal high water line on the upland edge of a wetland, and the shoreline is considered a wetland. From low tide to high tide is considered a shoreline wetland. 40% of the volume of trees 4 inches or more in diameter, measured at 4.5 feet above ground level, can be removed in any 10-year period. Although no clear-cut openings in the forest canopy greater than 250 square feet are permitted. Again, if you look at the site, you'll see that this is not the case. And we urge a site visit by the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, whoever, Select Board, and state regulators as well, to just have a look there and see what's going on, because if that is copacetic, as some regulators have said here in town, then there's something wrong. Either the shoreline zoning ordinances from the state level or the town are not really being adhered to, or I don't know, something's wrong. Do the department's guidelines define a well-distributed stand of trees and other vegetation? They define it, yes, and they use a point system. I don't need to go into that, but for those of you who are interested, there is a point system that is used to determine how many trees can be cut, and that sort of thing. So, again, that has not been adhered to here. So, those are some of the reasons why we're deeply concerned about not just the land, but the water, and all the creatures that depend on it, including humans, for peace of mind and a sense of place. And we destroy that. As I say, we destroy a lot more than we know. So that's pretty much all I have. We do have a photo, black and white photo that I can. That's okay. Pass that around.
In general, we ask that any materials would have been submitted in due time to be distributed equally and available to the public and that sort of thing. But, again, if you want to leave it with,
Sure.
send David a copy so that we can have it,
Okay.
that would be great.
Great. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's pretty much all I have, and I'd be happy to answer or try to answer any questions. Or I don't know if there's somebody else in the audience or not that would.
Well, John, it's clear you're very, very passionate about this subject, and thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us. Does the board have questions or comments for John?
Yeah, you bring up a couple things, but the one thing I want to take up is just to ask you if you have contacted our code enforcement officer regarding possible shoreline zone violations.
I have.
Okay. And you're happy with your accessibility to that person and all that stuff?
I'm happy with the accessibility, yes.
Okay, good.
Not necessarily happy with the answers, but.
Sure. Well, yeah. I don't know if there are other avenues for you to report possible violations or not, but
I have.
I'm glad that you started.
I have to
Good.
the Department of Environmental Protection, Shoreline Zoning Enforcement Body or
Good.
Division.
Okay.
That was gonna be my question. Have you submitted
Absolutely.
everything you've said to the DEP?
All the appropriate agencies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good.
All right.
Merge Lands, Parks Department, the DEP itself, Board of Environmental Protection, all the agencies involved.
Yep.
I've seen this and much more.
Okay, great. Jordan?
Yeah, have you also contacted this Amanda Beal? Do we have a contact from her? It looks like from the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry.
She has been, letters have been written to her, I'm quite sure. I didn't send one personally to her, but other people I believe have. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm just seeing that there's a deadline of the 3rd for comments and anything else to be sent to her. So
That's right.
I think where you have signatures and other things, it might behoove you to
Yes,
get those to her.
yes, and thank you for that reminder. And that is the intent to do that, to get as many signatures as possible. We're also getting signatures, by the way, not just from Lincolnville residents who, it makes sense that they'd be the ones to vote on it if it ever came to that, but also because other people living along the coast and inland, also we got quite a few signatures from people living inland. So it's not just people live on the shore that are concerned about this, but lots of other people as well.
Excellent. Anything else for John right now?
I have a question for David pertaining to this, so however you want to squeeze that in.
I think you can take it, unless you're going to need
No,
something.
no.
Okay, we can release you from the hot seat.
All right,
John.
great.
Thanks, John. Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask David, you know, you've got the letter here from Bureau of Parks and Lands.
Yep.
Okay, right. Okay, we're looking at the same thing. And I know you said you posted it at the town office.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Did you contact the Harbor Committee and give them a copy of this notice?
I have not.
Okay, so, but it does ask or suggest, I guess is probably the word, that they get a copy, any other organization that is responsible for reviewing coastal activities. Please provide them with a copy of this notice. And they refer to the Harbor Committees as getting one of, as one of those, you know, groups. Do you mind sending it on to them?
I don't, the, part of the concern, I know that some of them are aware of
Okay.
this, because they've been contacted, is they also have a role and responsibility in our town ordinance to comment on things submitted to the town. And I don't want to jeopardize their ability to comment locally with they've overstepped their bounds elsewhere.
Yeah, okay.
But I can certainly forward it to them.
No, well, actually, I mean, I defer to your judgment. I don't, it would be a darn shame if they weren't allowed to comment down the road in a permit application, if that's what you're suggesting. If we do it.
I don't know the answer to that, that's why I didn't forward it on to
Yeah,
them.
right, yeah, exactly. So that would be a shame if we,
But I could certainly find that out.
well, if we
and
close
forward it
that
to them.
door, it'd be too bad.
I heard Jordan's voice first, but I saw your
Yeah, you
hand
can
first.
go
Okay.
first, that's fine.
So I shot a drone video of the coastline. I thought it might, just of this general area, I thought it might be informative for us and the public just to see it. It's a minute and a half. It's quick, snappy. How does the board feel about seeing that quickly? And it also shows the area that this proposed pier would be, so I think it might be informative.
Well, I'm sorry, man. I know the area really well. I paddled there. I earned a living paddling that. And so I know it, you know, and so I've never seen it from above. But I don't know how that would help the board, and I don't know to what extent, I mean, can't you put that up?
Well, we're discussing it right now.
Yeah,
There's
no,
all
I
these
know,
people here.
I understand that, yes. I
So
don't want
what's the harm, I guess?
I don't want to deny anybody that opportunity, you know.
Well, I think we would need consensus of the board.
Of course.
So obviously you're interested in showing it.
It- As long as, I don't think it could hurt, you know?
I frankly, no offense to the video, I've seen the video, it's a very nice video, it's a very nice coastline, but late submissions like this, again, it sort of goes against my grain in terms of being submitted in due time, and if the public had been aware that this was going to be shown at a public meeting, perhaps it's something, it just, I'm uncomfortable with a late submission. And also, this is a citizen's request to come speak to the select board, and having a select board member, I mean, I know you're just trying to be helpful, but I am going to say no, for the reasons I stated.
How about we do it, if you get it on the agenda, we do it next time, in 2 weeks? Is that inappropriate?
Sure, or we
Yeah.
could have it as a,
Do it on
non-agenda
next
item.
spring. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, but the question is, are we gonna watch it right now?
Yeah.
And so I'm a no.
Well, this is easy for me. We've already rejected some literature from our presenter, which wasn't submitted in a timely manner. And why would we let a select board member do that when we wouldn't let him present? We need to follow our own process.
I guess I don't know how to submit a video. I didn't know that was even, we've never talked about how a selectman would present a
Wouldn't
video
that be
to
part
the
of your,
packet.
wouldn't that be part of your request to the town administrator and or the,
Yeah, to
or
get
the chair?
in
prior to the
the
meeting.
due time for packet information to come together. It should have been a conversation we had in preparation of our packet.
Well, now I know.
I have no problem, I would've had no problem with seeing the black and white picture either. I mean, we're in a public meeting, it was publicly presented, we're talking about this and, but, you know, we always go with the majority, so I don't feel like splitting hairs on it, we're discussing it right now, everybody knew we were gonna discuss this, so that's how I stand about that.
So I'm unclear on the consensus.
I don't think
Yeah,
we
my-
have it. It doesn't sound like we've got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
Josh, if you wanna share the video with the board in a public meeting setting, we'll figure it out.
Sounds
All
good.
right, okay, excellent. Anything else on John's presentation?
Well, I just also, not to hammer on David, I was wondering when this letter from Amanda Beal was made public. Just cause it feels like,
Public?
well,
The minute she sent.
Well, it was posted, that it was posted, was it December 9th? Cause I know Nick had mentioned that he wanted, you know, he had mentioned that the harbor committee, that things like this should have been brought to him. It just feels like it's the 27th today and the deadline for comment is the 3rd, and it's just like very short notice. And yeah, that's it. It's not, and as a select board, it's not like it's our place to give an opinion. I have no opinion
Yep.
about this, but I know that there are a lot of people, obviously, in the public who are, and I just feel bad that we're coming so close up against the deadline. And that's not an accusation, I just was wondering when.
The letter was received on the 9th, so my guess is it would be on the 9th or the 10th it was posted out front, because somebody opens the mail, stamps it, hands it to the person that's responsible for distribution, that's me, and whether it was that day or soon thereafter, it was posted out here on the bulletin board.
And to be clear, no application has been made to the town yet, so that those necessary triggers haven't, for the process that the voters adopted, haven't been made yet. And so, you know, to the point that, Mike, I think you,
Maybe.
perhaps you
Perhaps,
made,
yeah.
you know, just regarding the DEP right now is that acting body that is receiving those comments right now from the public. So they're, or the Bureau of Parks and Lands. Yeah, yes, so this department right now is the acting reviewing body, so it's totally in their court.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, when I see a letter from a state agency or government, federal or whatever, and I see very specific language like, although this letter is addressed to the municipal officials, any interested party or anyone who is knowledgeable about the area is welcome to comment. It just, how are people gonna know that there's comment that's wanted and being sought by this agency if it's not made very, very public? That's my concern about it. And again, and that's not me feeling one way or another on the project. I have no opinion on it. And in fact, as a select board, we can't have an opinion, and it doesn't matter because it's not in our jurisdiction no matter what way it happens. But that was my concern about it, where it was very clear that they were seeking input from the municipality and the public, and I don't know any way that people can know that if it's not really brought out. So
I know, government, bureaucracy, but hopefully with this public conversation here, there's a week and individuals have the opportunity to access their right to reach out to this state department. But Josh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand, regardless of how people on this board or the board feels about this proposal. So the state is sent us this letter, and it says it's addressed to us, the municipal officials, and any interested parties. They're welcome to comment. The harbor committee, if there is one, is welcome to comment. And I guess I'm confused. They're asking us for our comment. So if we wanted to comment, that says to me we could, but then I'm also hearing that, well, we can't, because if we do, then we'd be in trouble. So why is the state even asking us for comment if we're technically not even allowed to? Or is that just being overly cautious?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but the state sends different municipalities have different approaches to dealing with various bureaucratic processes and applications. And so I believe that that is, you know, state speak for being inclusive of the diverse and varied processes that any different municipalities may have. In this case, what the voters approved, in terms of our process is very clear in terms of going through the federal and state approval process first before you can make application to us. And then that process is very clearly in the hands of the planning board and their process, which includes the harbor committee. So I believe David was attempting to say, we don't want to jeopardize our right to our process by interjecting too early in the process.
So I guess I'm confused, because if there is a very specific process, and we're following that, you just said that the voters approved to follow the state process, is that what, so it's a top-down?
No, what I'm saying is in order to make application to the town, they have to come to the town with state and federal approval first.
So if by part of them
Before
getting
the
state and
town.
federal approval is them seeking our comment, I don't understand how that would be us going awry of anything that has been approved in the town charter or town.
Because we don't want to have if the harbor committee preemptively gave an opinion, say, or a judgment call before application has ever been made to our town, we don't want any one of the inclusive members in the decision-making process to have to recuse themselves because they
were following the process of the state.
because they too early commented.
That to me just sounds like, and forgive me, but that's very garbled, and it also just sounds, it's contradictory.
To me, it sounds like a passage from the Joseph Heller novel, Catch-22. I mean, it's what it is. But we gotta look at also, maybe it might help to explain that this board is in a similar position as the Harbor Committee, similar, not identical, I'm sure, in that this board may be called on to become the appeals board down the line, if the appeals board, for some reason, if it ever gets that far. Am I right, David, in that if the appeals
Maybe not in
board-
those exact words, but
Well, I think if the appeals board isn't able to hear the appeal because of recusal or they're not being a quorum or something like that, the board of selectmen of the town is required to fill that role. I thought that was how the statute went. At least that's how I remember the Maine Municipal Association reading that. There are a lot of towns that don't have appeal boards.
there are a lot
Yeah.
of towns that don't have a lot of
The board of
appeals
selectmen
boards.
fills that
And,
role.
and in the end,
Mhm.
removing it from a peer process for a moment and just talking in generalities,
Mhm.
when an application comes before the town,
Mhm.
the town dutifully follows its ordinances, says,
Mhm.
do this, do this, do this. In the end, even our local processes aren't the final say, so to speak. If you recall back to the cell phone tower application, people came to the selectmen, what are you gonna do about this? And the selectmen, well, we're not gonna do anything about it, we're gonna give it to the planning board, that's what the ordinance says. Went to the planning board, went to the Board of Appeals, I believe it went back to the planning board, back to the Board of Appeals, ultimately ended up in court. When it goes to court, you all, as the 5 elected leaders of the community, are involved in the defense of the town or the defense of the ordinance or the decisions made, and that's your role in the appeal process. Now, if we didn't have a Board of Appeals, which we do and we have for a long period of time, the board may have a different role,
Yeah.
but I don't foresee that here.
I don't know.
In an answer partially to the question about the comment period, every town has the ability to adopt or choose not to adopt rules and regulations regarding, in this case, a peer. I'm gonna venture a guess that the letter that came with this is a standard off the shelf. Every application, they fill in the owners and they fill in where it is and they send it to every community, because the state doesn't know what we've adopted for rules and regulations concerning a pier. And if you want to become involved, or you want others to become involved in the application, you certainly can. It may preclude you at some point in the future from being involved in deciding how the town defends itself. If you as a body interjected now, I'm not quite sure what would happen if it ever ended up through the entire appeal process, how the town decisions on that appeal would be made, because you would have, may not be the right word, but bias the process. You as a body need to remain neutral until it's your turn, shall we say.
And I guess I just don't see, this is what's confusing to me. I think we're using some kind of roundabout logic, is that I'll just use the Harbor Committee specifically, and maybe I'm misunderstood, but I don't believe, and wasn't under the impression that the Harbor Committee had any authority to be issuing permits for anything regarding this, and this is something that if it passed the state level would have to go to the Planning Board Committee and the Land Use Committee. So regardless, if the opinion of the Harbor Committee is going to be sought, that opinion's gonna come out no matter what. And just like the project that happened with the Guns N' Roses shop, there was a lot of fervor around that, but we have a fantastic planning committee that looks at the rules and the laws, and that's what we act on. So I'm not advocating that we give personal opinions about it. However, for example, as a select board saying something like, it's been brought to our attention in public meetings and through a petition that there is some hesitancy to this process, I don't find that to be biased at all. And a recusal usually follows when somebody has a vested interest in something to profit or gain in the process. So it gets exhausting me, so forgive me if I'm showing frustration, but a lot of times we bring up this blanket statement of process when, bureaucracy may be boring and tedious. However, the one thing it's not is that it's vague, okay? We have exact legal, requisitions and laws in place that we have to follow to the letter. So those things aren't going to change. And if we're going to talk about a process, I would really like, in the future and even now, to start specifically referencing those laws and regulations rather than using this vagary and generalities, because I find it as a way of deflecting and not doing things, and I find that to be frustrating. And I'm not aiming this at anyone in particular, but we are here elected by tax-paying citizens of Lincolnville to represent them, and there are plenty of issues where there's the public coming to us, and what we do is that we cut it off in the name of process. And I would like to say, if we're going to do that, I personally would like to see those processes being specifically referenced instead of just generally saying, this is what's happening.
Right.
And I will stop at that.
My apologies for not having.
That's not aimed at you or anyone
I've
else.
got to
Just-
extend my apologies for not educating the board properly and appropriately, and I'll try to do better in the future, but for this one right now, there is no building permit in the town of Lincolnville that gets to the Board of Selectmen for review and approval. None.
Yeah.
Zero. The land use application, which is what somebody would have to complete to construct a pier, there's a blank right on it, pier, dock, wharf, under proposed project that somebody would have to check. When that comes to the code enforcement officer, he goes to the land use ordinance. The land use ordinance, very clear, piers, docks, wharves, bridges, or other structures and uses extending over or below the normal high water line within a wetland. In this case, it's in a limited residential zone. The permitting authority, CEO, planning board, and DEP. Nowhere does it say Board of Selectmen. Piers, docks, and wharfs, it just continues on in the land use ordinance. In the harbor ordinance, very clearly says what the planning board's role is and what the harbor committee's role is. Nowhere, until something gets appealed and appealed and appealed, does it end in the lapse of the Board of Selectmen. My concern is, once again, if you interject yourself early on in the process, then you will preclude yourself from, or potentially be a headache, precluding yourself in the future when a decision needs to be made by the Board of Selectmen. I've tried to assist people in understanding that. I believe the code officer attempted to assist people in understanding that. I am certainly not going to deny a citizen the right to come to the Board of Selectmen and make their pitch. What I am going to tell you once more time is it's not your place to interject yourself into the process right now. And if you need copies of the land use ordinance or the building permit stuff or the harbor ordinance, I'll get it all to you.
Yeah, Josh?
I was just wondering if the board would entertain hearing any other comments, if there's members of the public that want to say something.
Thank you for asking that, and I would just like to take the opportunity to say, as the chair and the most senior member here on the Board of Selectmen, that I recommend that we do not further this conversation between the board and the public anymore. I highly recommend any interested citizenry, when and if an application is made to the town, to take it, same room, different governing body, the planning board, and have this conversation with the planning board and the related parties in the process that are laid out in our land use ordinance. I do not believe that the select board should continue down this road any further. But it is a consensus, we're a board, so I open it up to.
No, I agree with you. I don't want this board to be amplifying one side or the other, as it were, because it's not in our purview. And I sure as heck don't want to cut off public engagement in any way. But in a way, you're talking to the wrong people here. And should we direct you to the right people to talk to? Well, I'm sorry, that's kind of up to you guys to find that path, right? Because we're not a clearinghouse for information so much as a management agency. But I mean, I would encourage anyone who's interested, who's listening or in the audience or whomever, contact this guy, ring him up, and take an hour of his time. Same way with the, he can get you taking an hour of time with Frank. Call your state senator, whomever. Run the gamut, please. And I'm sure you have. And I don't mean to be patronizing at all. I really
Well,
don't.
and
Go ahead.
no conversations between the audience,
Okay, sorry.
please. But, David will certainly, provide you with real-time, live contacts that you can make, that will, places to send emails, phone numbers, etc. Karen?
I agree, 100%. This is the wrong committee, or this is the wrong board to be talked to in this part of the process. It's not to us yet.
Yep.
I don't want to be hamstrung when and if I'm called on to make a decision on this. I certainly appreciate the townspeople coming to us. That is not what I'm not complaining about that at all. I made the comment, which some of you, or maybe all of you, heard prior to this meeting. This is the most people we've had in this room in quite a while.
In a long time.
It's good to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I cannot make a comment on this, and I can't make a decision. It's not in my, it is not my responsibility at this time to make a decision for this town on this matter. I would recommend to take the advice of the previous selectmen that spoke before me. We do have avenues that you can go to get your questions answered, hear your concerns, your complaints, and whatever. We can get you to where you need to go. In the process, if that doesn't work out and this does come before us, then I'm your man. But until then, I am tied.
don't believe that I've commented one way or another during this meeting. I also don't think that I've engaged anyone. I don't think anybody here has. We have an item on the agenda. The public is before us. It is our job and responsibility to listen to our constituents, and I personally would like to let anyone who's here and wants to speak on this before we close this agenda item to speak. And I don't find that that incurs any harm or bias on us or any risk. And honestly, I feel like that's one of our main responsibilities, is to listen to the people that we represent. So that's how I feel about this. I feel like if anybody wants to talk, and I can't give you permission by myself, it has to be a consensus. I think they should be allowed to talk, and we can close this item, and then they can take the appropriate action. And I feel like everybody on the board has acted above board and according to rules and neutrally, and hasn't engaged, hasn't made any decisions, and I feel like it's important to let the public speak on in a public meeting on an agenda item that we've had on the agenda.
All right. Well, the consensus is to close public comment, so we're going to move on. Does the board, yes?
Yeah, just one more thing. So, yeah, I'm glad members of the public have come here. I think the public is a resource. They help us do our jobs better. And I take it as a responsibility to bring things to the attention to the public before it's too late to comment. I have been accused a few times in my time being a Lincolnville resident of bringing things up in the 11th hour before, while lots of decisions have been made and the big final decision is about to be made, and then I chime in and it's like, Josh, why did you jump in so late? And so I'm looking at this notice, it says January 3rd, and I want to make sure the public that doesn't happen to them. And so, anyone in Lincolnville who has a positive, neutral, or negative comment they want the DEP to know, please, feel free to reach out to them by January 3rd. Because, I just think that's our responsibility to make sure the public knows these deadlines, and now they do. And as you said, they have a week, and then give or take, and then once it goes through the DEP, then it goes along that process. But I just think it's important that the public knows that, and they can go from there.
Yeah, fair enough. And when and if they make application to the town, then we will stand by the oath that we swore to and the dotted line that we signed on to support the planning board and their process, and encourage you to participate in that. All right. Anything else on this agenda item? Not seeing anything. Thank you all very much for participating, coming out, speaking with us. We appreciate it. So moving along, we have agenda item number 9, and we have Susan Silverio here to give us an update.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and your attention. I know you have many things on your plate. This is an update from the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee that you appointed in June. There are 6 of us. We still have room for one more alternate member. And so I sent you this update on one page, but I thought I'd just kind of walk through it a little bit. There's a lot to share with you. And just to a brief background, as you know, our task that we've been given is to update the comprehensive plan. The original one was 1993. This one came out in 2006, so it's now 15 years old. According to the Maine Growth Management Act, anything more than 12 years old is considered inconsistent. In order to be approved by the state, this has to be consistent with the Maine Growth Management Act. After 12 years, that is automatically obsolete. And this plan is what is the legal foundation for all of our ordinances in the town. It means you can still issue permits, but if it goes to court, there may not be a good foundation legally for our ordinances, which were designed as a result of the land use chapter in this plan. So, there's this very comprehensive plan. There was also, a few years later, there was a document that was produced that distilled all of the goals and strategies that were assigned to the many committees of the town. You're probably all familiar with this. There are 89 tasks given to the select board alone. And I'll share this with David for the next meeting, just to give you that, because part of our job is to do an inventory to see what's been accomplished and what is no longer applicable and what remains to be accomplished and what's ongoing. So I'll get that to David for you to have at your next meeting, so you could possibly go through and help me review that, help all of us know where you are in your work as a select board. So we'll be doing that, reaching out to all the committees. Unfortunately, a number of the committees no longer exist. We no longer have a land use committee. We no longer have an affordable housing committee. And there's also not a water resources committee at this time. So we have, as I said, 6 members. We have a variety of individual areas of interest and expertise. It's a wonderful committee. I'll be honest and say, I've identified where we all have our interests, and my personal interest is in housing. I would like to see housing made available for families who are working and for elderly people on fixed income so they can continue to live in our community. So that's my interest, and other members have other interests. So to give you a little bit of a background of how we've explored this task, trying to determine what resources are available to us. I've been to other people who've worked with the neighboring towns. Jeannie Hollingsworth was one who works with the town of Camden. She's a Lincolnville resident, and she's been instrumental in helping Camden update their plan. They kept submitting it, by the way, and it kept getting rejected because they didn't have a good affordable housing plan. Goals and strategies outlined. It took them a long time to come up with that. So we've also been to the what's left of the municipal planning assistance. That's at the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry now, Tom Miriolo. So he did advise us that we could do a comprehensive plan update committee, could do about 50% of the writing, and then 50% would be done by a consultant, with the help of a consultant. This particular document, as you know, was the result of a long process that was supported by a regional planning commission. Jane LaFleur was one of the ones that worked many times to develop community engagement, to engage the community in identifying the needs and the wants and the interests. So I spoke to Jane. She's no longer doing consultant work. She's now working completely with the community heart and soul process. And that was new to me, but evidently this has been done across the country with communities, sometimes as an arm of their comprehensive plan committee, and sometimes just as a way to build community spirit and to find out what the heart and soul of the community is. So it involves many interviews with as anyone they can reach, anyone they can reach. It brings the table to the community rather than expecting everybody to come to the table. Not everyone can, especially now with our limited access and masking and protocols. So I'm interested in this process. And Jane referred me to Catherine Ingraham. It would be the coach. She could offer an online or hybrid introductory session free of charge, and it works complimentary until a community decides this is something that would be of benefit. The benefit I would see is that it would give us a clear vision for the future. Our current plan has a very eloquent chapter on the history, and it ends with the executive summary of the surveys that were done, but I think we could still have some more vision for what we would like for the future, for not only for preserving what we have, and guiding development, which will be inevitable. So rather than reacting to things that will happen to us, we can help shape our vision and plan for the future. So, oh, and I just want to add as a side note, I did discover that Lincoln County still has a regional planning committee, and they can help us with the transportation chapter. That could include the sidewalks that we had met with the DOT about this summer, and they could help us with that technical with the analysis of the data, and also the technical writing that would be involved in making us then eligible. Once our plan is consistent with the Maine Growth Management Act, then we would be eligible for funds, which could come through state and federal funds. But we need to be consistent with that grant, with that act. So that's a lot, and I just wanted to share that all with you. We were going to need help, and we're going to need help with supporting a consultant. And we're wondering how to proceed. We haven't made any decisions yet as a committee. We're still exploring all of our options and resources. But one way would be that we would need to go to the budget committee evidently and ask for a certain amount of money to hire a consultant or a consultant group to work with us. Another way, I don't know, this is not my business, it would be yours, is the town ready to support staff member, hiring a staff member that could address land use, because this is primarily land use we're talking about. Or like many towns have a development director, someone whose job it is not only to keep this up to date, which is supposed to be done yearly, but also to pursue the grants monies that are available for all the projects that the people of the town would like to see happen. So I'm dumping all this on you, and so I'm eager to have any questions or comments you have.
Thank you. First, if the board doesn't mind, I would like to know more about this Community Heart and Soul matching or seed grant.
Yes.
If you can expand on that.
Yes. This Community Heart and Soul, it's funded by a foundation. The Vermont Country Store people are funding this, and they are providing these $10,000 seed grants. We could apply for that now. It does require matching funds to come from municipality or other groups. There's various ways of pursuing this process. Some cities and towns will hire a coordinator. What Rockland did was they had 3 volunteers that were retired people who had the time and interest to spend a lot of time meeting with people in their driveways and parking lots, in any community setting, farmers markets, and asking them this question: what do you love about your community? Why are you here? What keeps you here? Why did you move here? Why do you stay here? And what would you like to see in the next 5 years? So these are the kind of questions. Once people have a chance to tell their stories, and they're actually recorded and processed, that what they have found, and Bucksport did this, Hollowell's doing it, they have found that people become engaged. They want to join committees, not just because they have a particular concern, but because they have a part of the vision. They share a vision. And so that $10,000 grant, seed grant money, can be used in a variety of ways. It could help pay for the coach. That could be Kat Ingraham. Once we have a team of 12 people who are going to be like the board for this project, and then identify who would actually do the real nitty-gritty work, then she could be engaged as a coach, and that could either be in person or online or hybrid. So all that would affect the cost, but part of those monies could go to provide a coach. Others could be for papers and pencils and clipboards and recording devices so that people can have the tools they need for the work.
Thank you. Questions, comments for Susan?
Yeah, sure. Well, Susan, you and I talked this afternoon about this, and so I get to publicly embarrass you, right? by saying this, you're doing a great job. I'm very excited about what you're all getting done. It's very cool. So after that, do you think you all, the comp plan committee, could arrange a Zoom presentation? Because I would like to attend, and I think it would be good for as many board members to attend as well, to try to kick this off, because we have momentum.
For the community, heart and soul.
Yes, yeah. Well, that seems to me the easiest inroad in keeping this going that I can see on this piece of paper here is that Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be happy to set that up.
I think that would be a wonderful thing if that's what your committee, if that's what your committee feels. Simply because this is a conversation that I personally think the town needs to have, and it needs to be ongoing. And this is a good start.
Where could that take place? Could it take place at the school?
Well, not to get hung up on technicalities, but would it have to be a live meeting at this point?
I don't know.
I'm looking
yeah.
to our town
I think live
administrator.
meetings are, the most important way to have meetings, as we've talked about here before, so.
Yeah,
And-
I was looking at the town administrator for, not to completely derail this conversation in a different direction, but.
Yeah, I said live. I said Zoom, and then live Zoom, whatever you can get going. Yeah.
She does a
Yeah.
hybrid, so she could come here and do something live from some larger public place. People could attend. We'd have to make sure that everyone could see it. There'd be some place to.
Well, we could figure this out at a
Yeah.
future date.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't necessarily need to lose the eyes on the prize of the larger context of your presentation right now, but we could keep this idea live and figure out the details later.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that the town of, city of Rockland did their heart and soul process as I think I already said this, as an arm of their comp plan committee. And then once these guiding principles were identified, they were able to be woven in to the comp plan. But the other result is, it's not just all municipal planning, it also generates a lot of enthusiasm for a lot of projects in the community, in addition. But getting back to the comp plan, we are going to need help with, even if we do all the inventory ourselves, there's still going to be some analysis and some technical writing and a review process, and that's where we could use help. And we have a number of $30,000. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be able to ask, and I don't know if that's going to be a request for proposals or if it has to go out to bid, or, we have a few people that we've identified, groups we've identified.
Sure.
Karen, you had a.
Susan, thank you very much for this. This is obviously a big undertaking, and my hat is off to you and the members. So, $30,000. Are you and your group to a point where you know approximately when you're gonna need that to get the ball rolling? And is $30,000 enough? Is it too much? That type of thing. The reason that I ask this is we're coming into budget, and I'm immediately thinking, when are they gonna need this? When you've mentioned another number that is gonna need a matching number. So, obviously, we want to keep this rolling and get it rolling as soon as possible. So I'm wondering if you've even had the conversation of when. Are you organized enough to be able to have that conversation?
We have just reached that point, and this is the quiet 2 months where I'm hoping we can start really focusing and people are here pretty much and we can do some quiet, focused, intensive work. There's a couple ways to approach this. If we had a full-service consultants, which might be twice that amount of 30,000, but you could spread it over 2 fiscal years. They could pound this thing out. They could make it happen in 12 to 18 months. You'd have a complete plan that would be, really usable for you. That would mean and what they do is they would meet with the committee. They would do all their research in their own office. They have all the maps. They have all the data. They would do the analysis. They come then to the committee, and they would facilitate conversations on these various chapters. It could be open to the public, so anyone can participate. Then they would take that and they would do the technical writing, and they'd have a product for us. Then they would help us present this to the town because the town has to vote on it. And there's also some engagement has to take place, like a survey of some sort or a public meeting. So if that's a full service, I talked to the Mussing group, the ones working for Belfast and Rockland, that would be like $80,000. So I don't even know what's realistic to ask for. I keep thinking probably naively that we could do a lot of this kind of writing ourselves, updating it with the inventory that we do and the data that we're given. We were a little bit late asking for the data from the state municipal planning office. It won't come out until the spring. We can do some data collection ourselves, but we won't have that to work with until the spring. Even if we take inventory from all the town committees and we get all that, we're not gonna be able to do much until the summertime anyway. So that's when your budget process, then it goes to the town for a vote. That's about when we could really, something could really take off.
Well, what I'm hearing here is there might be different ways that we can achieve the end result. Some ways might be more expensive than others, and other ways might be more donated time than others, or volunteers, or this or that. So are you and your group where you have been talking about which way you want to recommend to go with this, or are you still, because you could go with the spending money aspect, or you could go, or at least this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
You could spend the $80,000 or $90,000 or however much it's going to cost, or you could spend $10,000, $15,000, maybe $20,000 and go at it a different way. So I'm wondering if you've even had time to talk about that and select the way.
We haven't, I can tell you I have a sense of the committee. There are at least 1 or 2 that said they're adamant that we cannot do this ourselves. We need a professional to do this for us. And that's it as far as they're concerned. There are others, again, I have to say, maybe I'm naive to think that we could do more of this ourselves. And there are a number of us who have some experience in writing and editing and all those things. But then again, that's one of my reasons for talking to you tonight. Like, what is your will? We could just, small group could wordsmith this, and then you'd have a good product. You could have a product. The town could accept it or not at that point. The town has to be engaged. And so that's why the heart and soul process appealed to me so much, that it would be a way of really engaging the town, taking the table to everybody else.
Jordan, you had your hand up.
Well, I mean, Karen actually asked pretty much exactly the question I was going to say, but this is near to my heart because I was the person who actually pushed for this committee to be re-engaged. It was troublesome to me that we had an outdated comprehensive plan, and as you said, it does leave us vulnerable not having one. And I feel like that you presented us with a few different options that are still in the workings, but it sounds like to me that with $30,000 and then a $10,000 that could be matched with this grant, sounds like really the beginning point of the allocation of funds, because we won't even vote till the summer times. That's when you guys will be ready to move on it. But if we had that $40,000 allocated, then that would allow you guys to hit the ground running, and in the process of doing so, would be able to make a fiscal recommendation going forward into our next budget year
Mhm.
on whether or not you would need those extra funds. That's what it sounded like to me. Personally, I feel like it's something that's very important, and while it's much appreciated that there are members who are willing to do the volunteer work, I mean, it is a very important legal document that kind of governs the way that we move forward. Especially since we're working with something that's extremely outdated, I think that it's important that we come out with something that's very concise and strong, and also in a structure in which, as you mentioned, can be updated every year or 2 years, rather than waiting an extravagantly long amount of time in between, updating it. So that was not a question, I'm sorry, but it just, from the information that you said, it just sounded like that was really a starting
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
And it is a ton, I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of work, to say the least, so
Yes.
it would be nice if you guys could have professional help in the drafting and tailoring of this.
Mhm. And there are people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And who have not only we feel like this is a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know our town that we love, and get to really read about everything. But like the Mussing group that's working with Belfast and Rockland, they really know how to work on this, and the kind of analysis that we need that we can't provide ourselves, the kind of technical writing that will be a legal document, and also to be able to stand in front of the town and defend it. This is why you need this. The kind of reasons that we've been hearing tonight. So
To provide a structure with all the talented and skilled people that you're working with on board right now can run with that, instead of having to build it up from the foundation yourselves.
that's right. And then we as a committee would be there to hold that process. They would have facilitated conversations with us, but they'd be open to the public.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a great deal of money, but as I said, it could be spread over 2 fiscal years. That $80,000 was a number the Mussing group gave me. But you'd have a product that you wouldn't have to worry about at that point. Yeah.
Mike, you had a question or a
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, Susan, 2 things. One, I don't want to close off the conversation in any way, but it sounds as if you guys, your committee are armed, ready to have discussions about how you want to come back to us.
Mhm.
Is there anything more that you need from us? Any questions that you have, so you guys can have that discussion? When you think about the top of your head, obviously, whenever you come up with them, come back to us, of course, and
Yeah.
just give us a call.
But it already helps me to hear your
Mhm.
questions. I guess I wonder, what your interest is, how you'd like to see it
Mhm.
proceed. You appointed us as a committee. How would you all like to see this unfold?
Mhm.
I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think you and your committee have positioned yourself very well to have a very clear and concise proposal to bring back to us for budget time, and then the necessary bureaucratic steps will unfold from there in terms of, whether there's RFPs or bidding, all of that fun stuff. But the work and the synopsis that you have offered us here tonight is full of wonderful content. It's very sound. It has clear direction, and so I feel like keep doing what you're doing. So,
All right,
thank you.
And we'll keep you updated. We'll be back.
Yeah,
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention is just a really minor thing, is that I'm on the Conservation Commission. We just kind of became aware of some resources from the state, which we'd like you to get.
Yeah.
And so you might want to reach out to the Conservation Commission, or have Cheryl in particular, because it involves habitat mapping in Lincolnville.
Yes.
And it's kind of online software where you can input to the layers that they have on the maps. And anyway, we want to make sure that you have that in case that helps you out doing inventory.
Yes, the maps have come a long way in the last
Yeah.
16 years.
Oh, yes.
I'll say.
Oh, yeah. Scary.
So the habitat, and then the other one is from the coastal mountains and other land trusts. We can have a clear picture of all
Yeah.
the preserved land, conserved lands as
Yep.
well.
And, yeah, and you're doing inventory, but I mean, you're aware of, just the opposite of natural habitat, broadband, availability. And,
There's all kinds of wonderful.
that's right, there are
cross-pollination.
maps there too, so I mean, you guys can have
Oh, yeah.
a big collection of maps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Susan.
thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Anything else on that? All right, let's move along to the very exciting appointment of the Public Facilities Director. David, do you care to give a spiel on this at all?
Sure, just after a year-long process of the road commissioner telling the board that he was looking to conclude his road commissioner duties, and the board examining efficient delivery of services, and then developing a job description and a pay scale, and getting town meeting approval for funding for the public facilities director, and then seeking a public facilities director. The board spending numerous meetings interviewing potential candidates for public facilities director. I think we're ready to actually make an appointment of a public facilities director. And, woohoo.
The smooth and efficient process.
Been a long time coming, but
Would anyone care to make a motion, please?
I move that the board appoint David Roundy Jr. as Public Facilities Director and Deputy Harbor Master at step 7 on the pay scale with a 6-month probationary period.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much.
What was the name again?
David
David
Roundy Jr. Mm-hmm, yep. And we look forward to you all getting to know him. Okay, next up we have the solar array purchase. David, would you care to give a brief synopsis, please?
sure. About 5 years ago, the town solar array went live. It's located at the fire station. That was approved by the voters earlier in 2016. We've been operating under a power purchase agreement with Revision Investments LLC is the actual owner of that facility. We've been purchasing power from them since, with the planned purchase or the option to purchase after 5 years of commercial operation, which will be December 31st. The board, a couple of years ago, appointed a solar array purchase committee to explore the feasibility of that. They came back and said the greatest savings to the town would be if the town purchased that as soon as it was available, which was still several years out at that point. The townspeople for the last 3 years at town meeting have appropriated money for the ultimate purchase of this. The board, once again, I don't know, 6 months or so ago, asked that committee to once again relook to make sure that all the assumptions made at that time were still in play. They came back and said, yes, they are. We've notified Revision Investments that we would be looking to purchase this in the new year. They've come up with the power purchase system purchase and termination agreement, because we'll no longer be having the power purchase agreement should we purchase it. Revision Energy, which is somehow related to Revision Investments, but not exactly the same company, has offered to manage our renewable energy certificates, which we can they can sell on our behalf on an annual basis, which should generate a little bit of money, about $1,500, well, average $1,400 to $1,500 a year for the past couple of years, with one anomaly year of where it was like $200, but whatever, which wasn't in the calculation from the committee. We also have an operations and maintenance services agreement that the committee looked at. There's different levels of operations. They come do inspection, do testing. Periodically, the committee recommended a bronze level, which is the entry-level services agreement, which seems prudent. We have the money for it. Everything seems to be coming into place, and just need your, as the board's approval, to move forward with
Excellent.
the final crossing the Ts and dotting the Is.
Would anyone care to make a motion, please?
I move that the board authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the town administrator to sign on behalf of the town, the power purchase and termination agreement, the bill of sale, the renewable energy certificate management services agreement, and the operations and maintenance services agreement, and any other documents necessary to purchase and operate the solar array from Revision Investments LLC and/or Revision Energy Incorporated with a purchase price of $56,786.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And thank you to the committee that helped us come to this conclusion and all their work. Next is our annual item of business to review and revise if necessary and ultimately approve the list of qualified mooring inspectors. Any thoughts from the board on this list that the harbor master has provided?
This looks good.
Yeah.
I just have one question. David, do you touch base with all of these every year?
I do not. We have contact with the various ones that are more active, shall I say, in doing inspections. I have no reason to believe that any of these that are on the list aren't capable of doing it. Whether or not they choose to come to Lincolnville or whether or not anybody in Lincolnville contacts them, I do not know. But
The only reason I ask is I wonder if most of these are still in business or still active, and if not, I wonder if we could move them off the list and get someone in on the list that most likely would want to be on the list. And I know we've got a one from last year that's been added to the list, which is good, but there are a couple that I question due to recent conversations I've had with people out in another community, and I just wonder, I mean, we can approve anybody, but maybe we can't if they're not in business anymore,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, are we in a pickle here? Because I believe that it doesn't, aren't we required by charter to do it in the month of December?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because we're going to actually send out the renewal notices by the,
I mean, if
Second and
there is a defunct individual on here, then you simply will not be available
Well, they
for
won't-
services.
probably won't respond then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But perhaps, David, you could put a note in our file for next year just to, because I think Kern is right that there is at least one, maybe two, who are no longer in the biz. So it might make sense to
be good for the harbor master to put that on the list.
update that, but I don't see that precludes us from.
Maybe it would be good for our new deputy harbor master to make that part of his annual responsibilities.
There you go.
Nice.
Recently approved.
There you go.
First job.
All right, so anything else on this? If not, would anyone care to make a motion?
I move that the board approve the harbor master's recommended list of qualified mooring inspectors for 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And we have slowly been working on listing and selling a particular piece of property, and as the existing listing had expired, we now need to renew this listing, and as such, you have a motion before you.
I move to authorize the town administrator to sign the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with Camden Coast Real Estate for the property identified on tax map 22 as lot 28 with a listing price of $100,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? And for those at home, that is, how best to describe it in not tax.
It's a beautiful lakefront property on Levenseller Pond that Becky Johnson at Camden Coast Real Estate could answer any and all questions for you.
Tell your friends, tell your neighbors.
We,
You won't be disappointed.
Exactly.
Okay, moving along. Broadband update. Josh, do you wish to lead point on this, or Jordan?
The only
or-
update I have is what's in the packet,
Great, okay.
unless
David?
I'm missing something.
Have we had an update from the Island Institute?
Right.
Is that,
I don't think, David, have we anything from the Island Institute yet?
I haven't heard from the Island Institute
did
yet.
we reach out to the Island?
Was I
Institute?
supposed to reach out to it? Because if I did, I didn't.
I don't know.
I,
I
the,
thought we were going to after the last meeting, because then we were gonna come back with the numbers that we can then allocate.
right,
Was it my job?
I think it was, Josh. Sorry. No,
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that was a broadband committee thing, but,
Well, now we know.
but we have not,
Okay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No one's heard from the Island Institute.
understandably, we haven't heard from them.
Alright,
But so we have the draft of professional services agreement, and we did have loose conversations about where to pull funds from,
Yeah.
et cetera, but we do have this, ARP, A funds. And, yeah, so I don't know what you all wanna do. Yeah, Mike?
I am of a mind to get it started.
Yeah.
And,
I was just gonna say that.
Take the 12.50, 12.5, whatever that number.
Yeah.
Pull it, get it started. Pay Axiom and have them start tomorrow, or whenever they start.
and it would be the 5,000 allocated and the 7,500 from the ARPA funds, and then if the Island Institute happens to come through, then it will be even less of that.
I understand that thinking. I mean, personally, and this is probably not the board's opinion, I would like to see the broadband committee keep that nest egg 5.
Yeah,
Always have that in the budget, carry it over.
yeah.
I agree.
You know?
Keep that as a,
Yep.
things are
Right,
likely to change
right,
plan.
because I
We're
think,
not gonna call it coffee money, but we're gonna.
no, I think,
No.
I think the broadband committee.
No.
No, the
we are
broadband
not.
committee may want to start a public relations, marketing, blah, 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 drive, something like that, and may need that cash.
Well, and if
For them.
the Island Institute grant is available to us, having matching funds to
Sure.
leverage those funds
Yeah, yeah, right.
to further
Yeah.
our
Right.
project,
Yeah.
makes sense. So I'm understanding there's general consensus that 100%
Yeah.
of the county funds that were allocated to us. Yes, David?
I just might make a suggestion to the suggested motion that's in there, which would be to add, at the end of that sentence, to be reduced by any grant funds obtained.
Okay.
Well, now another thing comes up, which I would kind of like us to talk about. What is the broadband committees, how do you guys come down on adding the $2,500 digital inclusion package, digital equity package, excuse me? It seems to me, and I'm talking from the outside, looking in, right? That could be a good thing to have in our arsenal for future monies. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I seem to, when Michael gave the presentation and we asked about the digital inclusion, which I'm totally on board with, but that was something that could be added later? Did I?
Yes.
That's
So
my
it's not
understanding.
something that we have to like move
Absolutely,
it to, okay.
Right.
So having the funds in place, but it's good to know that we as a board, that's something we'd like to move forward, in the
Right.
future, because like you said, I think that it's very imperative.
And it was
It's
roughly
important.
25,
25, okay, so that seems to me, that's like an argument for keeping the 5
Yeah,
in the
Yeah.
broadband committee, so that when the project funnels to that point, that we could make that call.
yeah, as long as we don't shut
Okay.
the door on that.
No,
Right.
but
Yeah.
thank you for bringing it up, absolutely. Okay, so everyone got that, addition to the recommended motion? And would anyone care to make that
I
recommended
move that the
motion?
board authorize the town administrator to sign the professional services agreement with Axiom Technologies LLC in the amount of $12,500 with funding to come from the American Rescue Plan Act allocated to the town by Waldo County, to be reduced by any grant funding received.
So moved
The second.
and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
You got it?
Thank
You
you.
got it.
We got it.
Great.
Very well done. Okay. And our favorite annual activity is our annual review of David, our town administrator's performance evaluation. We have the form that we've been using for a very long time. And the board can certainly amend that form, and we should definitely discuss and agree to the timeline of that evaluation and with the
Thank you,
contingent.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome to
Thanks, Stephen.
the committee.
Welcome.
Have fun.
So we have to have the evaluation done by the end of January is the only caveat, and I have found it takes a couple of weeks to get the forms
Get it
back from
Meaning
every.
it needs to be administered by the end of
Yeah.
January, so what would the date of our last meeting be? 24th? We're meeting with the town of Camden the
13th.
24th.
24.
Well, we're having,
Yes.
we could distribute the forms at our next meeting formally. And they can also be distributed digitally, for sure, but, we could, formally decide to distribute them at our next meeting and have them back for our last meeting of the month. Does that work for everyone?
Definitely works for me, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
The sooner I could get mine, the better, because it's like,
Yeah,
But the form is what we have in our packets.
it is. It doesn't
So
say-
it's
Well,
something we can
doesn't
get
say
started
draft.
on.
some do the Word document, others do the,
Yeah,
Some folks prefer to send me a PDF,
Yeah,
which
okay.
is perfectly fine. I just ask that you don't send it the day we're supposed to do the review, because the proper process is to consolidate and submit a consolidated review form with averages of all of our averages, and I hate having to rip through that the hour before the meeting. So
and
that's
you probably want it written cleanly and legibly, and
as much as possible.
maybe double, triple spaced, yeah, okay.
It could, it goes in David's permanent
Yeah,
file.
yeah,
It
okay.
does, it does matter, so.
Yes, it does, yeah.
So does that timeline work for you, David?
What's that? Yes, that timeline works for you, works for me.
Okay,
Great.
or agreed?
Yep.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Yep. Excellent. Kern, do you have an update for us? Nothing. Come on. Okay. Fair enough. I'm not gonna push you on that one. Josh, do you have an update for us?
I do not.
Okay. Mike, do you have an update for us? It sounds like you were splitting wood,
I was, yeah, well, not today, yeah.
but for over at the woodshed?
No, at Searsmont, yeah,
Oh,
we're
okay.
getting ready for next year,
Oh,
so,
wow.
very cool.
Good for you
Yeah,
guys.
we have, Sunday, we had 17 people there, 4 splitters, 2 people per splitter, one guy working a very cool wood processor where you put on tree length and it comes in, chops it, and then you got, it's something to see.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah, you should see it. It's like a 36-inch bar, right? It's a chain, it just comes down.
Amazing.
Comes down, chops it, and you hit another lever, and it runs forward into a wedge, splits it, goes up a conveyor belt, out come split firewood.
God, so civilized.
Yeah, it's something else. Well, yeah, but actually, it's one of those machines that it's a machine, which means it breaks.
Sure.
And so it isn't always working, so you rely on people schlepping rounds into feeding splitters, that type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But that's going well, but I wanted to, along those lines, do a public shout out to one of the other volunteers, as a person volunteering Richard Smith is doing volunteering. He's sitting in a cold truck on Saturday mornings with bad Wi-Fi and helping people schlep wood in the rain, so I just
For the
wanna say.
Waldo County Woodshed?
Yeah, I just wanna say thanks, Richard.
There you go. Jordan, update for us?
No update?
And I also have nothing, and that is okay. It is a quiet time of year. So next we have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move that the board approve the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And not having any more formal business on our agenda, we can have a final motion.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
Move to adjourn, second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much.
Yeah. Thank you.